Have you ever been watching one of the great pianists and thought to yourself, how do they manage to play that many notes and that many chords and not get tired and play a whole concert of it? There are people who can do incredible, incredible things, and it seems so effortless. And in some ways, it almost is. And this is because the motions that they're doing are so economic. They're conserving their energy so well. They know how to move in such a way that it's almost like they're playing only 10% of the time. And the rest of it is just kind of allowing things to, like allowing a ball to roll down a hill, almost in that sense. If you watch Yuja Wang, for example, you can just see her fingers flying. And it's just so incredible to watch. But she's not tense up. Like when I try to play super fast, my forearm starts burning, everything just tenses up. And these people are so loose. They can play crazy fast. And they can also play for a very long time, like their whole lives. Some people will get carpal tunnel if they're not careful. But Horowitz is playing in his 80s. And so it's really important for all of us to really consider the way that you're using your arms, the way you're using your back, all of your body to conserve energy and to reduce tension. To really think about this in terms of the most economic motions that you can do. So this is what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about the concept overall, how I understand it sort of conceptually, and then I want to give you some really concrete examples that can help you to apply this, hopefully, into what you're doing. What I have learned over the years about my body and the way to move it is that there are different parts of your arm. There's your finger, your wrist, your forearm, your elbow, your upper arm, your shoulder, your back. All of these are interconnected. Okay? You cannot just move anything independent of everything else. It's connected. Your shoulder affects everything below it. Your elbow affects everything below it, and so on and so forth. So you want to be aware of how this affects it. Now, the smaller muscles, the smaller parts that you use need a little bit more effort. So if you're just playing with your finger, you're going to need a lot more effort than if you use your whole arm. So that's why it's important to know how to use the rest of your arm, all of these parts. But on the other hand, these parts are larger, and so it takes more time to move. So to be faster, it's faster to just use your fingers. So the basic premise is to find the right balance between how much are you going to use your finger and how much are you going to use your wrist, how much are you going to use your elbow, so on and so forth. Now think about the tension that happens when you use too much energy from one part. That tension is going to cause a lot of issues. So when you do have tension or uncomfort in some part of the body, you want to stop and consider how you can help that part out with another one. And kind of you're finding balance between all of these parts. That doesn't mean that they're all going to be used equally. It really depends on the passage. Some passages you're really going to be using just your finger for the most part. In some passages you're going to use a lot more of this. The basic premise is that you're finding how much to use from each part of your body and how to use that in a way that's going to minimize tension first, and then also minimize the movement. Because first you have to minimize tension. If there's any tension, that's going to block you down the road. If it doesn't block you immediately in your playing, if it doesn't stop you in your tracks, it's going to cause problems. And then the more of that, it builds up, and then eventually you tire out. But you also want to minimize the motion that's happening just so that you can play faster, right? The less motion that happens, the faster you can play. This video, we're going to be covering a few strategies to help with your hands and your fingers and a lot of the smaller muscles out here to be more economic and more precise. Next video, we're going to be talking about the upper part. So that's like your shoulder down to your elbow and your forearm. The first situation we can talk about is using your wrist in an up-down way. A lot of times people think about just going down when they play. And the problem with going down is that you must be up before you go down. You cannot go down if you're not up. And a lot of times this causes wasted motion when people are trying to play, but their wrist is too far down. and they're trying to go down. You can only go so far down. They don't know when or where to come up. Now here's the trick, is you can play a note by dropping into it. You can also play the note by going up. And when you do that, your finger does go down into the key, and you're kind of pushing forward with your arm, but your wrist is going up. This puts you in perfect position to come back down for the next one. So this is a great way to save your energy and to keep things flowing in kind of circular. You're up and down, up and down. So we're going to use this passage from Chopin's Etude, Opus 10, number 4, also known as the Torrent Etude, for this example. It might look like this, with this. I start up. When I play that first note, I'm going up. So in order to do that, I start with my wrists down, and I go up, and then down, up, and then I'm going down. And as I'm playing those notes, my wrist is coming back up, so I'm ready to go down for the next one. So you're kind of mapping out your passage in terms of where you can go up to prepare for the next down. And you might be able to just start with up, and the up motion sometimes is a lot better. You can still get a pretty good big sound with an up motion. So keep that in mind and try to conserve your energy, and don't try to go down when you're already down. Don't try to go up when you're already up. If that happens, you need to look at the passage, reorient yourself, and kind of remap it out so that you don't run into that issue, and you just keep things flowing naturally. Another thing to think about is how high your fingers are between the notes. If you're playing something like that, that's just unnecessary. You don't need your fingers to go very high when they're lifting. Now, we talked recently in a video about making sure that your fingers lift, and I talked about lifting high as a practice technique. The point is, your fingers need to lift. But when you're going fast, the higher you lift, the longer it takes to get down to the next next note. That's just a reality. When I practice, I'm going to pretty much touch the key that I'm playing, or that I'm about to play. I'm going to touch it. And that's going to minimize a lot of motion. And the more you use your arms, the less effort you need from your fingers. But even with just your fingers, you don't need too much. So make sure that when you're practicing, you kind of just touch the key that you're going to play. You only need, or you can have it a little bit above the key is fine too. I like to touch the key. I think you get a better relationship with the keys. You can feel it out. That's helpful. It's also really helpful in this case to think about keeping your wrist high and angled down so that your finger is going down into the key. If you're angled more like this, it takes more effort to lift the keys. But when you're angled down like this, it doesn't take so much. And so that's a great way to minimize the effort from your fingers. So that's why we always stress keeping your wrist high, and I like to think about angled down, kind of looking into the keys. And it's also why it's helpful for a lot of people to raise the bench higher, because that just puts you in a good position for that reason. Next, we're going to talk about preparing the hand position that you're going to be in. Let's take this passage. So this passage is kind of difficult. I obviously can't stretch my hand to reach all those notes, so I'm moving through a lot of different hand positions, back and forth, back and forth. So when you have something kind of similar to this, you're going to have to map out all the different positions, and I'll show you what that looks like. Here's one position. Here's another one. Here's another one. Now, the point here is to get between those positions as smoothly and economically as possible. And what happens for a lot of people is they kind of skip over the transitioning between them. So when I go from the first one to the second one, I can't overshoot the motion. I only need to move my elbow about this much distance to get there. And so if I overdo it, then that's a lot of wasted motion. If I underdo it, my finger's not going to get there. I'm going to stretch my finger too far. So first you're going to practice the hand positions, moving between them, kind of like a picture by picture, frame by frame. Then you're going to have to focus on using this finger as a pivot. You can see that note here, my index finger is pivoting. My finger's almost glued to the key and it's just twisting around as I move. Now, this is really important. There's another way to map out these positions in this particular passage. It might be different for different passages, but if you can see it on the music here, I'm going to start instead on this note, and then I'm going to block these two notes together, and these two, and here, 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 here. Because I'm going to have to connect those notes as well from here to here to here. And if I can map out those positions and practice both ways, the first way was here, second one was here, then I've explored all these hand positions from as many angles as I can. And when I put them together, my hand knows exactly where to go, and it's much smoother in getting between all those positions. So this is really important for conserving energy, because if you don't practice this way, your hand's not going to know where to go. And then when you play it, you're going to be controlling the muscles to try to get to the right spot, rather than just allowing them to go where they know exactly how to get there. And when you allow things to be that way, you don't use that much energy, because you don't need to like control it. And whenever you try to control things, get tense, and that causes way too much energy. Next video, we're going to be talking about the upper part. So that's like your shoulder down to your elbow and your forearm. So if you want to play the piano for a long time, for the whole rest of your life, and play in a healthy way, and to start moving towards playing really fast and almost effortlessly, these are some helpful things to think about. And you just want to really consider where all the tension is in your body and how you can use different parts of your body to even things out and help each other out, so that you're working as one interconnected being. Everything works together. And that's what we have for today. So take care. Let us know if you have questions, and happy practicing.